Hi there, I'm Stephanie, the Crafty Medic. I wanted to do a couple videos telling you about something that I do with all of my stampers, all of my customers, but I haven't really seen it formalized anywhere, and that's adaptive stamping. Now, when I talk about adaptive stamping, it's very similar to a lot of the things we talk about when it comes to adaptive activities. So we've got things like adaptive sports. At work, I deal with adaptive cutlery, things like that. And these are ways to help people overcome challenges. Now, if you don't know me, I do have a day job. Stamping is not my full-time job. I work as a paramedic and as a registered nurse as well. So I see adaptations and adaptive activities in my work a lot. And I work with a lot of people that have a variety of different challenges when it comes to just everyday activities, and stamping is no different. So these can be challenges that range from something as simple as not being able to see what you're stamping properly. And this is something, for example, that I find with a lot of people that wear bifocals. They're actually not able to gauge distance accurately, and they don't even realize it until they go to stamp, and they're always stamping on an angle instead of straight up and down. And this is something that you just have to be aware of, and then you'll overcome it. Other things may be things like tremors. A lot of people have a bit of a tremor, especially as we get older. Sometimes things like that start to happen. It can be difficulty holding on to things. Anyone who has arthritis in their hands, for example, may have trouble holding on to different tools. Other challenges could be somebody has a major disability. Some people only have one arm, things like that. And all of these adaptive stamping techniques that I'm going to be teaching you over the next few weeks can overcome some or all of these just in different ways. So I'm not necessarily going to talk about specific disabilities. I'm going to be talking about different types of challenges. So that could be, like I said, anything from eyesight to fine motor coordination, gross motor coordination, and any number of different challenges. I use a lot of these when I'm stamping for myself, even though I don't have any major challenges to overcome. Some of them just make things easier for me or make me able to do more for longer. So I'm going to talk about some of those types of things too. For the first video, because I've already talked for a while, I'm going to keep it nice and simple, and I'm going to show you a few things with our blocks. As we're moving away from having wood mount stamps, clear blocks are becoming more and more important, and I wanted to show you a few things about them. Okay, so this is the first thing I wanted to show you, and I'm not going to be doing any stamping onto cards or anything right now. I'm just going to do it onto the grid paper in the background here, but I wanted to talk about clear blocks. So now that we're moving away from wood mount stamps, all of our stamps are going to be mounted onto clear blocks, which is a good thing and a bad thing. So our regular clear mount blocks are very similar to the wood that you may be used to, and they work really well for most things. They're available in a bunch of different sizes. This is, I think, the smallest one, and then I've got the biggest one here that I'll show you. But some people have problems with these. They can be difficult to hold on to. They do have these ridges here, but if you don't have the strength in your fingers to pinch them properly, you don't have the mobility in your fingers, they can be a challenge. They are also fairly heavy, especially the larger sizes can be quite heavy. So what I wanted to show you was that there's actually smaller ones available. So these are the ones that we've gotten through Paper Pumpkin. And these are available. You can purchase these. They're quite cheap just through your demonstrator. And they don't have the ridges on the side, but they're smaller and lighter. They're the same size as the regular D block, as you can see, but they're a little bit lighter. So these can be easier for some people to manipulate. I find especially with kids or anybody else that doesn't have the strength to pick up one of these big heavy blocks. And when I say heavy, I mean they're not that heavy. They're still fairly light, but for some people it is enough of a difference that that it can help. The other thing I wanted to show you was with these with the ridges. This can actually be a help. This is how you'll see most people stamping. But just by holding your hands differently, you can actually accommodate a large variety of challenges. So for example, you can actually stamp like this. You do have to kind of squeeze in order to hold like this, but that does work. And I can actually even use the side of my arms to do this, depending on the size of the block. So I wanted to show you some of that. So I've got a couple of stamps here. I've got a cling mount and I've got a photopolymer. And I'm just going to put it on different blocks to show you that. So I'm going to set these aside because I'm actually not going to use those ones. I'm going to use the paper pumpkin one, and I'm going to use the regular block. So I'm going to mount up my cling just like that. And then what I'll do is I'm going to mount up my photopolymer like this. So I've positioned it and I've dropped it on there. And now because I can't get the pressure right that way, I'm just going to push on it like that. All right. And then I'm just going to bring in, this is my Blueberry Bushel ink pad here. It doesn't, the colors don't really matter. And then when you're getting ink onto your stamps, it's always that light tap, tap, tap. You don't want to smash your stamp into the ink pad. And if you're having trouble with that, I'm going to do another video about inks that talks more about if you're having trouble controlling the pressure that you're putting on your ink pad. But all we're going to do is we're going to do a few light kisses on there. And one way I heard it described the other day that I thought was hilarious is you're kissing the ink pad, you're not making out with it. And then you can just put it where you want it. Again, set it down and then some nice even pressure and then lift it back up. And so I've actually stamped without having to hold on to that block. Another way that can be easier is to actually turn your stamp upside down like this and holding on to the ink pad. And again, just light taps, you're not making out with it. And when I'm saying smushing or pushing too hard, it's when you end up with things like that. So see how there's ink all around. You'll actually leave an impression in the ink pad, but you'll end up with all of this ink around there as well. And then when you go to stamp this, if you push too hard or you rock it, of course now I didn't do it enough, but if you rock it around, see how you get those little halos around there? And that's when you put too much ink on it. And the same thing, you'll get actually ink on the block as well. So that's why we're doing the light little taps and just firm, but not smashing it in there. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show you was if you're really struggling. So I'm going to clean this stamp off because it's going to bother me. If you're really struggling with, see now I can't get the ink off of the background there. Okay. Mostly clean. I'm going to use the same color so it doesn't really matter. It was just going to drive me crazy. So if this is too small for you to hold on to, what you can do is you can use your bigger stamps, or your bigger blocks rather. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this up in the middle of this, what size is this? The F block. This is the biggest one. So this will actually fit those background stamps. And you can actually hold it like this. You won't be able to actually get your fingers underneath there when you push it down. But if you kind of roll them out like that, you can actually stamp with a much bigger block. You can go smaller. You can go on to a very small block, depending on the size of your stamp, if it's easier to manipulate a smaller block. But a lot of people don't think of a larger block being easier too. So it's heavier, but you can hold it differently, right? You can hold it like that, and then you're just rolling your fingers out from underneath. If you can't roll your fingers out from underneath, but wait, there's more, you can actually do this the other way around. You can put another block underneath, and I'm going to put this under my grid paper so you can see this. Or maybe I'll just grab a piece of scrap paper here. And we're actually going to stamp onto this scrap paper here. So we're actually putting that on here, and now I do have the room to keep my thumbs on, or my fingers underneath there. So I'm going to do the same thing, light taps, and on the ink pad it's not a problem. You've got that room on the side, and then here you can line it up and then stamp on there. So you're actually giving yourself a raised platform so that you can hold onto this block tightly like this and use that for stamping. So those are just some different, very basic things that you can do with your clear blocks when you're stamping. So this is for your cling, clear, and photopolymer stamps that you can do this with. Don't forget that if you need any of these supplies, you can shop online at thecraftymedic.com. Shoot me an email, write me a comment. I'd love to hear what your adaptations using these supplies are. I'm going to be posting some more videos talking about adaptations you can do for stamping if none of these things are working for you. If you've tried a lighter block and it's not working, you've tried a bigger block and it's not working, or you just know that these adaptations aren't going to work for you for stamping, I've got some more videos coming up to show you how you can still enjoy stamping and card making.